Hi everyone, welcome to Beyond the Whale Skull.
We have teleported to here. It is such a privilege to be with everyone here tonight again for our third Beyond the Whale Skull. So thank you everyone for coming here, all students, all staff, all faculty, community members and all.
So, we were trying to decide how to introduce ourselves. And we were really debating it for a while. And then we came to the conclusion that maybe simpler is better. And so this is Sarah.
This is Natasha. Hello.
And then we came up to the next hurdle to jump over. And that was, how do we introduce this evening and Beyond the Whale Skull? And this was a little bit trickier. And it took us a while, and we were sitting out in front of Tab, and there's those staircases, and the birch trees were silhouetted against the sky, and the ocean was in front of us, and the green grass was starting to sprout out of the ground.
And then we realized that sometimes starting at the end is actually better than starting at the beginning. So we're going to actually start, I'm rewinding, that was all that, rewinding, all the way back to last year's event. So can tell for ourselves, for those who were with us last year, for those who weren't, let's tell for ourselves all the way back to this time last year, where many of us left this space having just been inspired by our wonderful presenters from last year, from all their different ideas. And one of those people sitting in the audience was Maya Bro. She's a current student here, and she left with all these ideas bubbling in her head, and in a year's time has come up with many of her own life-changing ideas. So, our first presenter, give a warm welcome to Maya.
Myra!
Hello! So, as Sarah said, last year I left this presentation feeling really inspired, and I thought, wow, all of these people have so many great ideas, and they're going to go out into the world and they're going to make these ideas happen. And I thought, wow, I don't have any good ideas. And then I thought for a while, and then I thought, wait, no, I have way too many ideas. And then I realized all of my ideas would take a lot of work to implement. And it would be a lot faster if I just told you all of the great ideas that I have for the COA community, and then you guys can go out and implement them, and I don't have to do anything. So anyway, without further ado, nope, that's not it. These are my brilliant ideas which will never come to fruition. So my first idea is, you know how you go to the free box and you get something and you put it on and you go out into the world and someone says, hey, that's my shirt, nice shirt, that was mine. Or you see someone walking around and you're like, oh, look at those shoes, those were mine. And I think that due to the free box, we have this effect where everyone just starts sort of converging and starting to look the same. And then one day you show up in class and you realize that everybody else is wearing a Common Ground t-shirt. So I think we should just lean into this and just have an official uniform. So I have two models who are going to come up now, and they are modeling the winter and spring editions of the new COA uniform. that's better. Thank you. So we should make this happen. And I think that this would be really great because if we had a uniform, everybody could, once they graduate, leave their ratty uniform behind, and new students could put on their ratty uniform, and people could already look ratty when they start COA. And they wouldn't have to do that whole thing where they show up and they're all clean and then they slowly get grungier over a few months. They could just be grungy already and they'd feel comfortable. They'd feel, like part of the community. So here are some more ideas. So I think we should have a dating app at COA called Discarded Resources. This is an idea that I came up with a few of my friends. Couple things about Discarded Resources. It would be like Tinder, but with features like, do you have a full meal plan? Have you dated most of my friends? Do you have free laundry? Netflix? Central heating? Indoor plumbing? And then we could connect people who have needs with, people who have stuff, and that would be great. People could have more successful romantic lives. Okay, my other idea is I really am just so excited about the people who have brought free menstrual products to the restrooms on campus. I think that's a really, really important thing that some really cool people have done. But why stop at menstrual products? There are so many other things that we could give out for free that COA students find themselves needing in a pinch. So I think that we should have bulk bins of chocolate, beans, condoms, tampons, matches, toilet paper. Just an idea. So if the menstrual products people want to make this happen, go ahead. Okay, and so I also have a couple potential class ideas for COA that I just wanted to put out there. And if you want to do an independent study in one of these or make these into a class, please go ahead and do this because I would love to see these as classes and let me know if you do it, okay? Beekeeping doulas, the career of the future. Whales, wolves, and weed, appreciating megafauna and psychedelics. In the footsteps of Abby, a residency as an eco-terrorist. Everything is on fire. Climate change on an island with intense fear of arson. Turn up the beat. Folk music in the farming community. Sheep to shag carpet, creating 1970s decor with organic wool. And last but not least, whitewater white people, the human ecology of sunburns. So the final thing that I want to share with you guys tonight is I have an idea that I'm actually working on implementing, which is I'm trying to create a COA directed game of Cards Against Humanity. And so I'm crowdsourcing ideas for different cards that we could have. So if you're actually interested in participating in this and, you want to, give me some ideas for cards, just hit me up. And so I just want to conclude this presentation with a bad idea said is always better than a good idea left unsaid. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maya. And that is so true, and this is really what this event is all about, is coming together all of these ideas, whether you had small little ideas that you might think oh, that idea was so crap, but really it meant something to you, and you want to share that with someone else. Or who here sat in class after coming from a class and just had a really great conversation, or then at a community meal, and just said wow, that was such an interesting idea. And I wish I could share that with people. And this is what this event really, kind of came about, was thinking that, well, we can't possibly know everything that there is to know in this world. But what if we could bring people together and just share some of these ideas so we don't always hear? And it's been really special to hold this space and to have ideas to share, small, large, of all different shapes and sizes.
And one thing that I've been thinking a lot about in my life is how can I move through the world and create peace and harmony and and live with each other in a heart-centric manner. And I think that one of the ways that we can do that is by listening to one another. And so, as Sarah was saying, this is a beautiful opportunity to just sit and listen to the ideas, the life-changing, world-changing ideas that a select number of you are bringing for all of us. And so this is an opportunity for us to listen to Mariana from Bolivia with her life-changing idea and her story.
Yes, no. Is it working? Hello. I think it's working. Okay. I'm just gonna read you guys something that I wrote for myself, and I decided to translate to English and to share it with you. Lately, my days have been filled with introspection and gratitude. Gratitude is a pleasant feeling, and it keeps me going. Introspection, on the other hand, is a challenging action, but it is exactly what I want to be doing. I am learning how to face myself, and it takes time. It also takes an insane amount of energy, and most importantly, it takes honesty. I learned how to lie at about the same time that I learned how to speak. When I lie to others, I am also lying to myself. I lie to myself when I say yes, even though I want to say no. I lie to myself when I apologize without truly being sorry. Or when I talk about something that I do not care about just to keep the conversation going. When I do not ask for what I want because I was told I should not want it. I lie to myself when I give more credibility to what I was taught than to what I feel. I lie to myself when my actions do not reflect my ideals. It is so easy to lie. Often, it is expected. And it does not take much time or effort. In fact, lying is the foundation of small talk. And it seems that small talk is the foundation of our everyday interactions with each other. Basically, how everything begins. Lying deprives the other, and therefore ourselves, of making an informed and truly critical choice. Sometimes, when lies are said too often, we end up believing them. And this is especially dangerous when we lie about ourselves. Sometimes, though, lying seems to be necessary, especially for adapting and navigating this world. But there is a difference between adaptation and integration. A critical approach to our world, but mainly to ourselves. That is what makes the difference. How can we be critical if we're constantly lying? I left my hometown about 5 years ago. There were many reasons for me to make this choice. But do not get me wrong, I am deeply in love with the place where I come from. But I knew it was going to be really hard to become who I wanted to be in that context. I was always aware of the limitations of being a woman, raised by a conservative working class family, in a patriarchal society, in a developing country. However, as soon as I left home, I found more limitations that were tied to my identity, to my own fears and to the ones around me, my newly acquired context. I understood that no matter where in the world I am, it will always be hard to be who I want to be. And this is not because I want to become an exceptional human or a savior or a prophet. I think it is because I aspire to something much more simple. I just want to be true to myself, to recognize my own humanity, to get to know the animal within me, to respect and love the imperfect animal that I am. Only then, I will be able to be critical with the world around me and to truly live up to my ideals. For this to happen, Deconstruction is urgent. Unlearning is crucial. And honesty is essential. Lately, my days have been filled with introspection and gratitude. I am grateful for those that have listened to me, my fears, my desires, my mixed feelings. I am grateful because I can have real conversations quite often here. Through them, I practice my honesty. When I have the opportunity to honestly talk and be critical about what really matters to me, I am practicing how to be free. I am also grateful for those that have been honest with me by sharing what matters to them, only when I feel like listening and when they feel like talking. Sometimes talking about the strength of the sun or the length of the visit of this winter is just enough. And I guess it's fine. But right now, I am grateful for the kind of conversations that make me stop and reconsider my actions, that help me reconnect with others, and therefore with myself. It takes time to unlearn what we were taught without being asked. It takes a critical approach to sort out those lessons, to pick the ones that are beneficial to us, and then let go of the others. It takes introspection to make sure we're being honest. It takes some practice, and definitely more than one person to be free. Thank you.
So, in the process of creating Beyond the Whale Club, we sat with the nominees and talked to them about what their vision was for their ideas they were going to share. And Mariana was talking about what she was going to share, and she said, I think I want to sit and I want to read a story because I wanted to study literature. And so just her decision to convey her message in that way and tell a story was her bringing her truth to the stage. So yes, she was telling you about her truth, but she was also acting her truth as she sat.
The way we're told stories can hold powerful memories within our heads. And stories that were also told specifically as a child, either from parents or from adults or people important in your lives. And who here remembers a story being told to them as a child that had an impact on their life? Does anyone want to share a quick snippet or title of that story? Anyone?
Sure. My dad used to be about stories for me, and he would always talk about this little girl who saved the whole village from this massive giant just by using pepper and salt. Throw it in his mouth, and the giant would have to run and drink the lake and then run further because he was so thirsty. And continuously run away from the village that way. And that showed me courage, and to even though I'm short and I'm a woman, I can still do anything I want to do.
Thank you, yeah. Our next presenter tonight is someone who has also had the wonderful opportunity to actually put different stories together into one book. Actually taking stories from newspapers, stories from police beats in particular.
What's police beats?
Okay, so when something happens in the community and the police get notified about it, and they get put into a newspaper, for example, the one time 50 pounds of cheese was found in a bush down Ledge Lawn. And all these funny stories, Richard Sassman put together in a book. But Richard Sassman is also someone who's done so many different types of projects. From right now, you might have met him at the YMCA. He's doing a photograph project on looking at international diversity of the YMCA, to working with different magazines, newspapers, radios. Before we had a proper AV team at COA, he did all the filming for the COA graduations. So all different walks of life. And we would love to invite up next Richard Sassman.
couple years ago, my friend Larry called me up and he invited me to go on a road trip with him. He said, I've decided to drive through all 48 connected states in 1 month. I'm going to carry an American flag, and at the end of the trip, I'm going to present it to this ship. It's joining the Navy, and I want to be there in San Francisco. It's called the USS America. I think it'd be cool to give them a flag. He said, I'm going to be the face of the trip. I'll do all the driving. You just have to navigate because I'm not good with maps. And you can be the photographer. And I said, you know, I've known you 25 years. That is the dumbest idea you've had yet. And Larry said, I knew you'd think it was a good one. So in the end, we did our flag trip in 3 parts, not just one. This is kind of a map I drew of where we went. And I talked him out of a month. I said, we're too old. We'll kill ourselves if we try and do it in a month. He said, okay, how about 2 months? And I said, oh, okay, if that's the best you can do. So we also got to go to Alaska and Hawaii because we had an extra couple weeks. Actually, we were in Alaska on Friday and Hawaii on Monday morning. It got kind of crazy at the end. But we did make it to the commissioning of the America, and we were right on schedule. Basically, we just drove around and we'd see somebody and I'd just go up and say, hey, you want to hold this flag for a few seconds? These guys were fixing a highway in Delaware and I thought it looked cool. So people would look at us, I'd say, it just takes a 60th of a second. Just give me a 60th of a second. So I took literally thousands and thousands of pictures, and I think about a dozen of them are really, really good. But I don't want to talk about those. I want to talk about this picture tonight. This, if nobody was around, I just take a picture of Larry with the flag, and this is in downtown Milwaukee on the second day of our second leg. And I just want to mention a couple things about this picture. If you see, Larry's leaning against a ledge there. And basically, to get the angle I wanted, I had to climb up on the same ledge that's on the other side of the bridge and kind of walk out along it. And this sounds like a joke, but I started to climb up on this ledge, and I looked down and I saw my shoelace was coming untied. And I thought it over, and I thought, you know, it'd be more dangerous to climb back down and fix my shoelace and climb back up again. I'm already up on this ledge, so I'm just kind of gonna inch out along the ledge. To give you another look at where I was, this is kind of where I was taking the picture from. The other thing, if you notice in the picture, the thing that really makes it work, all the other flags are really flying pretty nicely, and that's what attracted me to it. But what that also means is there's a really high wind at the moment. So what's happened is I have this image in my head. That's a really interesting building in the background. It's the art museum, the Milwaukee Art Museum. And I've been thinking this would be cool. I got all the flags, I got the art museum, which is maybe the most distinctive building we saw on the whole trip now that I think of that. But basically, to sum up, I'm on a ledge, I'm 30 feet up in the air, and there's a high wind blowing. And my shoelace is untied. The thing I wanted to talk to you about today is that the photograph isn't reality. It's just an image. It's a process. There was a sensor in my camera. I put it on a little card. I put the card in the computer. It's just digital. It's not reality. The reality is, if I fall off that ledge, I'm not going to be getting up for a while, if I ever get up. This is a painting by one of my favorite artists. He's a Belgian surrealist named René Magritte. And a lot of people think this picture is called "This Is Not a Pipe," because that's what the caption says, but Magritte actually called it the treachery of images. He was kind of making a riff on little kids' alphabet books. This is a tiger, this is an elephant. It's not really an elephant. It's not really a tiger. It's not really a pipe. You can't put tobacco in it. You can't smoke it. It's just an image. He's also right that images, Magritte's title for this painting was The Treachery of Images. And he's right that images can be treacherous, which the photo in Milwaukee teaches me that. These days, one of the life lessons I've tried to learn is if I'm trying to capture an image, no matter what you're looking at, you really can't overlook reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So, reality is a really interesting thing to think about. And linking into our next presenter, the combination of Richards and our next presenter made me think of an inspirational man who you may all know named John Lennon. And he sings a song that goes, imagine there's no country, I wonder if you can, and it goes on. And I was thinking about borders and countries and what the world would look like if we didn't have countries and borders and if we were divided by other features in our landscape.
So our next presenter, Pato Patricio, who graduated from theory last year, is going to share with us his journey and understanding borders in a very different perspective, and I will leave it more for him to say. So, Pato Patricio.
Thank you. Hello. Yes, working. I want to start by saying this. Everything coexists within a watershed. Households, businesses, industries, agriculture, plants, animals, microbes, you name it. Throughout my human ecological journey, I've come to see and study life through the lens of watersheds, with water as a fundamental ingredient for life at the focus of it. We all live in one. We all depend on one. And we all affected in one way or another. So, what exactly is a watershed? A watershed can be defined as all the land that drains into the same location or body of water. Think of it as a funnel, collecting all the water within a specific area and draining it to the nearest body of water. Drop by drop, this water flows through creeks and rivers and streams to eventually reach bays, lakes, or the final flush, which is the ocean. Or it may take a very different route and infiltrate to the soil, feed aquifers, and eventually flow out through natural springs. Now, you probably remember learning in elementary school about the water cycle, but you probably took all the services, the ecological services they give us for granted, such as drinking water, clean air, irrigation, energy, recreation, flooding control, pollution filtering, just to name a few. And how we take advantage of these services largely determines the scheme of this utopian-looking diagram. This is where things get complicated. And this cycle becomes what Surfrider Foundation calls the cycle of insanity. The real story of water. We're cutting down forests, we're building over wetlands, depleting our aquifers, eroding precious soil away, causing sediment pollution, pumping water over thousands and thousands of miles from Fiji or the Alps, even injecting water into bedrock. for our precious fossil fuels. We're building large-scale dams to affect the entirety of a river system and displace people. We're dumping stuff in our waters that other species are like, what are plastics? What is this? We're affecting the biogeochemical processes of carbon, which you can see here, we're dumping into the atmosphere, nitrogen and phosphorus, which flows into bays and cause algae blooms at rates we've never seen before. And on top of this, 1 billion people still don't have access to clean water, and 2.3 billion don't have access to sanitation from this water. Population growth, urban development, climate change are the most serious threats to watersheds worldwide. And we're rapidly driving them to the edge of collapse. But don't panic yet. What if we start from scratch? What if we started designing with nature instead, working with the river system rather than against them? We cannot use the same system that got us into this mess to solve this. What if we organize based on watersheds? This is what it would look like. All these lines are 100% scientific, based on digital elevation models. So these lines were not drawn by anybody, only by topography. If we take a closer look, you can see the Congo River Basin and the Nile River Basin becoming the powers of Africa. The huge rivers in Russia draining to the Arctic Sea. The Amazon, the lung of the world, the Amazon watershed and the Paraná River watershed. And then we get to the United Watersheds of America. You can quickly spot the Mississippi River in pink, the giant watershed, the biggest in North America. And since we're using the political boundary of the US, I'm going to bring out some big issues with this. The Rio Grande is split in half in Mexico, half in the US. Transboundary conflicts between the US and Mexico are huge in this case. Colorado River, same thing. Most of it in the US, but the delta is in Mexico, and they get mostly affected by it. The Columbia River starts in Canada and drains into Washington State, also another case of problems. The Great Lakes, what they do in the Great Lakes on this side affects what happens on the other side. So if we actually base ourselves in these borders, these conflicts would be greatly diminished. Second of all, with watershed boundaries, once powerless watershed committees acting as intermediaries between states will have a local say in local solutions for local problems, making implementation of restoration projects, monitoring and assessment of sustainability goals much straightforward. Each watershed can balance their water use and, more importantly, use it locally. Then land use coding and regulations can follow and start to reflect the needs of those local watersheds rather than those of special interests, which are not directly impacted by these actions. Some examples of this in reality is Oregon. Oregon has state agencies elected by they have elected community representatives for watershed councils and watershed districts, which do a bunch of watershed work within the state of Oregon. The same for Kansas and Minnesota. The Chesapeake Bay program in the Mid-Atlantic is probably the most ambitious watershed-wide program. It got put in a pollution diet. They have to comply with certain levels of nutrients and sediments on a daily basis. But furthermore, watershed boundaries would give back power not just to the rivers, but to indigenous tribes that settled on their banks for thousands of years. The Penobscot Nation, here you can see the Penobscot River in red within the New England region, recognize the Penobscot River as their lifeblood. You can see how this kind of resembles as arteries and veins, so it's not much to say. And they are literally the river. Indigenous notions of water and their inclusive decision-making process can help us build healthy and resilient watersheds based on informed local knowledge of landscapes. And now it's time to meet your watershed, the one you're standing on right now. Within the New England region, you can aggregate all these watersheds into the Gulf of Maine watershed. And within, you can see all the sub-watersheds, including the Penobscot and Kennebec. And they all drain, also in Canada, they all drain to the Gulf. So they're all this entity together. And if we zoom in into the Maine coastal region, we get to the Frenchman Bay watershed. And within this, we can see the minuscule COA watershed you're standing right now. But we're largely affecting it. This little watershed is 30% impervious with concrete, which triples the amount of runoff. 9% of solar energy comes from on-site. 70% of wastes are diverted in this watershed. We're the third water user in Bar Harbor. 2 million gallons of water taken from Eagle Lake. There's no rainwater collection at all. So that's a very off-budget balance. We're importing a minuscule part of produce, and we're producing 1,100 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, which would be equal to 3 Eagle Lakes coverage of forests, consuming that carbon for a year. So, the watershed perspective recognizes that social, economic, and ecological sustainability can only be achieved through ambitious watershed-wide programs that strive for self-reliance, self-resiliency, energy independence, social equity, and climate justice, starting at the community level to eventually accomplish regional and global goals, one small watershed at a time. So, with this in mind, I invite you to meet your home watershed, get to know your home watershed, and become an actor of inclusive, constructive, real, and impactful change within it. Only then we can start living to the carrying capacity of our watersheds and reintegrating ourselves into the existing ecological machine. I'll have a booth during Earth Day on Saturday, so you can show up and you can actually meet your watershed, and I'll show some maps. So if you just give me a zip code, I can tell you your sphere of influence and how you affect it. And with that in mind, I invite you to double think your effects in your watershed next time you cross that bridge from Turrets to Deering. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, I think it's really valuable. We've been talking about sharing our own stories and those stories. And it's also really important to take what we've heard and share it. And Jasper is one of the people that I know who truly speaks for those of us living on planet Earth who do not have the voices we have. Jasper, this is his original song.
This is dedication. Oh, the banks may crumble and the tankers may tumble, but an oily pelican's wings never cease to rumble till they stumble around and drown. Far falling fast to the ocean floor. Not much point in trying to breathe anymore. Just let your lungs fill with that comforting weight of a relapse into fate. No, they ain't just memories. Just another broken inky pen. Just another flightless island wren, eaten by the lighthouse keeper's cat. Getting fat, whoa. I admire the dedication it takes to fly for miles and cause the sky to quake, or to shoot for the stars, or a pigeon steak, and to take, and to take, and to take, and to take, whoa. No, they ain't just memories. Dedication takes patience, but I can't take it anymore. This patience got me waiting for the world to take into consideration the dedication these animals are putting into making a living for themselves and for their kin. Is it a sin? Are we cursed with dedication? Came rats and in came guns. Now the mowers are gone, every last one. I hope you see the beauty of this world under the sun before it's gone. You better run, boy. In came ships and in came grains, and in came an insistence on a European reign, which required the decimation of all to attain. Think about the dedication this sort of thing takes. No, they ain't just memories. Dedication takes patience, but I can't take this anymore. This patience got me waiting for the world to take into consideration the dedication these animals are putting into making a living for themselves and for their kin. Is it a sin? Are we cursed with dedication? Grim, but it doesn't have to be a sin to have dedication. Thanks.
I don't know if you felt it, but I just had shivers all over me listening to you play there, so thank you. And music has that power, that music, see? But yeah, what it means to all come together and just to sit and to listen to music rather than listening on our iPhones or on our headphones. But it captivates us all in a way that we don't otherwise experience in that live performance that can be so powerful. And not just music, but also theatre. Theatre has that power, and that's what I experienced last term. I was taking part in the play production with Jodie Baker, and Maya wrote, or other presenters, she was also part of the play production. And for me, that was a really life-changing moment after taking that class. The power of an audience and actors and performers and production all coming together to witness a creation, to be part of something, and just simply suspending our disbelief and all being present together, the same way that we're all here tonight to create something. And that play to me, what it also allowed us to explore, it was exploring the questions regarding death and what actually happens when we die. In fact, we don't know really. But this question of, well, how do we think about death? It's not a conversation we often think about, but that play really brought up these conversations. And one of our next presenters, Michael, he is actually someone who does ask this question and has explored this in many different ways. And so we're really grateful to have him to share his story. So, Michael, thank you.
December 10th, 2017. My dear future child, I have become more and more conscious, yet torpor towards my life struggles. I need to write down something to keep me in perspective, but I'm not sure if this will help, or what these words will mean to you. I'm terribly sorry if I become a selfish and ignorant creature. Blame everything on me. Dad. February 16th, 2018. My dear future child, I've been in a weird mood recently. I tried fasting for 2 days and then happened to learn about Caravaggio in art history. His paintings are dark, filled with a sense of self-awareness that burns to the detriment, yet remains so essential. They feel like what I try to do with myself, my own darkness. I don't think that life is only about surviving. It isn't about trying to appreciate every little things. Neither is it simply about discovering one's own darkness. It seems like it will only function when there is a lost love that I shall cripple myself to give out again. Tempeh, Kitian. April 28th, 2018. A poem. Hi, mysterious future. Please put down that freshly baked baguette and listen to this uncertain voice settling into the currents of time. The jumpiness continues to stir inside my mind today as the stars shine still from light years away. I hear both tears from someone's heart and giggles of the darkness in my own. We look into each other, we hug, we share the fragility of existence and maybe expect no more. With bitterness, pain, and temptation, forces that always trouble humans, I begin to suffocate until the bubbles burst and I fall. I lose my direction, or perhaps realize that there wasn't one once more. And with my remaining consciousness, I can only wish that the world is still warm enough to put a smile on one's face, to revitalize one's heart, and to soften the body against the ceramic floor tiles in a chilly night. January 25th, 2018. My dear future child, your grandpa left me several advice for college the other day. To get enough exercise, to make good friends, to form good habits, and to gain knowledge and skills useful to the society. I guess as your dad, I should also leave you with some wise words at the end. But since you know how confused I always am, let's save them for some other time. Good night for now. Yours, Papa. August 2nd, 2018. My dear child, I cannot predict the future, But as I come back to my senses just after scrolling through the news for more than an hour, I believe that there will be several points that my future self might include in a letter to my present self. That is, if I never end up correcting them. Number 1, please guard your consciousness and just go to bed when it's okay to do so. Like right now. Number 2, work efficiently for the sake of your future well-being. But don't waste the time you just saved, like what you were just doing. Number 3, you always struggled because you failed to define your morality, but nonetheless there were stupid things that you could avoid, like what you were just doing. Number 4, take care of your body and start heading to bed now, seriously. Number 5, remember to keep a balanced attitude in love. Don't get lost in your familiar space and forget about your work tomorrow. Also brush your teeth before going to bed, even though you're kind of exhausted now. Alright, dear. Good night. Now go. Yours, Papa. April 18th, 2019. Dear friend, sometimes this place can seem like a bubble that I'm disintegrating myself to settle into. But there are also so many heartwarming moments that inspire hope in me, that make me care. What a world. Best, Michael.
I think that vulnerability is something that is really special. So Michael, thank you for coming up here and sharing that. So when I had just applied to College of the Atlantic and I knew that I was going to be coming, there's this Facebook group and it developed, and one of the people in the group had the prompt that all of the people who are coming in this past fall could write down a little blurb about who they were and what they liked. And a lot of them were like, oh, I like purple, and my favorite color is, my favorite color is purple, and I really like dancing under rainbows, or that sort of thing. But there was this one person who was talking about community living and vulnerability, and I stopped scrolling through my news feed, and I kind of yanked my head around and said, hey Mom, come over here, read this a second. This is the kind of person that I want to be going to school with. And here they are, they're going to be going to school with me. Their name's Ian. They sound pretty cool. And so, as I have seen Ian flourish here, he has brought that sense of vulnerability and listening and sharing from his heart, and just to show that this is really the way he is, he's been vulnerable enough to invite 2 of his loved ones to come and share their vulnerability on the stage. And so I invite us all to hold them in that, and also remember the power of truly being vulnerable.
I did not know that story. So thank you for that. This in itself has been a little bit of an experience for me between the rehearsal that we did and now. I wrote out what I planned to say, and then I realized 2 things. One, that what I had written were things I also needed to learn myself, and that vulnerability is something I struggle with all the time. And also that to read something I had written was to be in opposition to what I wanted to speak to. And
So I decided that I wanted to just come up without knowing what I was going to say, and that was going to be being vulnerable and trusting. So bear with me on that one. So in fall of 2016, I'm standing in the New Mexican desert somewhere, and I'm holding a little pile of gray dust in my hands, which is all that is left of the rear brakes in a 44-year-old Volkswagen bus that I'm living with my friend in, and the hope is to live with my friend in this bus for a year in order to show that we can be independent and that we can be self-reliant. And so it's interesting that what failed within the first 2 hours of this trip were the brakes, because brakes represent control and having control of what's going on. And that became the theme of this trip, was not being in control and not knowing what was going on. And then after that, it became the theme of my life. Because when we try to control things, when we need to know, is when problems start to arise. Because in reality, everything that happens is this huge interconnected web of all the people in our lives. And we're reliant on them in ways we don't even realize. And so this idea of trying to be self-reliant, of trying to be independent, is a myth. And it was a myth that this trip disproved for me. When we stand on the side of the road and we start walking and the car stops, we didn't know the car was going to stop. We trusted that the car was going to stop. We trusted that the person inside felt similarly to how we felt, and that they would be willing to let us pass. It's these little tiny things that we trust in other people that we don't realize that we trust. And the more that we trust, the more that we are vulnerable to all of the people that we ever interact with. And we do this every single day with every single person we interact with. We trust them in some way or another. They hold us and we hold them, and we are vulnerable to each other. Nothing happens in a vacuum. Everything happens interconnectedly. And so that actually has a lot to do with giving a talk as well, because as I was trying to prepare for this, I realized that everything that I wanted to say, everything that I was thinking about, the ideas in my head, were a culmination of all the conversations I've ever had with anybody I've ever known, and a culmination of all the conversations that they have had with anyone that they have ever known. And the web just spreads out and out and out and out, and you don't realize that you're actually connected to everybody. And so this talk isn't really my own. It's everyone's, as is everything that we do. And so I would like to end with thanking you all for being a part of this incredible web that is all of our lives, and will continue to be the lives of the people that come after us as well. Thank you.
the long line of accidents and struggles, victories and miracles that's taken to bring every one of us into life. Doesn't that almost feel sacred? Or holy? Maya's laughing because this is a line from the play, everybody, and I just want to say that that line came up to me when hearing Ian, when hearing your talk. So thank you for sparking those ideas. Our next presenter, Stephanie, is unfortunately unable to join us tonight, but I would still like to share a small part of her story that she shared with us in the process. Her story is all about the act of journaling. Who here keeps a journal? God. Yeah, pretty amazing. I remember being in philosophy IB class. And where we were learning about what it means to be a human and what it means to be a self, and how the act of journaling, when you write down your day's events or some sort of memory or some sort of thought, and then you might forget about that for a couple of months, for a year, and then you come back to that journal and you read that day's entry and you just think like, wow, I completely forgot about that. But suddenly you're teleported back to that moment, and your understanding of who you are from that moment is changed. And so in a way, by us writing down thoughts and memories, we have implications of changing our understanding of our future self. To me, that was mind-blowing thinking about that. And I don't know if anyone else has felt similarly. And so on your chairs, you might have seen a small piece of paper. And I would love to invite everyone to take a minute to just write down something that they've done today, or something that they've learned, or a person that they've talked to. And then keep that piece of paper safe. Safe, tuck it and put it in a box, or put it on your pillow, and then in a couple of weeks, come back to that and think back to that moment. Yeah, maybe just a minute. Does everyone recommend us us? Pencils? Share? So think back to that moment in a couple of weeks, and just see what happens. We're slowly coming towards. And I hope that we've all had an opportunity to listen to new ideas, and to really share and celebrate that. Our last presenter of the evening is someone who embodies listening deeply in all of her actions and is such a role model to be present with. She calls herself a moderator, and that's what she really does. She brings together students, adults, children, all people from different backgrounds and diversities, and bring them together to share their stories and their ideas. In her future, she wants to become a lawyer, and we need more strong people like her in this world to bring together people to really listen to different sides. So it is our absolute privilege to invite Amma up as our final presenter.
Hello, everybody. So much of our society defines beauty with perfection. Even in supermarkets, we've become accustomed to the elimination of the asymmetrical. And we thank people because they give us the food that is that way. We also thank people because they are able to, we also compliment people when they are able to delete their imperfections through the use of Facebook or Photoshop, makeup, Snapchat filters. But something that's amazing about COA is its ability to recognize diverse identities and diverse people. But even at COA, sometimes things pop. So I want to ask you all, who here has ever felt imperfect? And raise them proudly. Who here has ever felt the need? Who here has ever felt the need to be perfect? Who here has felt that only by being perfect could they be loved? So many of you, and myself included. And in those moments, there are two things that always remind me about the beauty of perfect imperfection. And that's pottery and my mom. So, growing up, my mom noticed that I had a craving for perfection at a very young age. And so at the age of 9, she would tell me, just be. And she would tell me, break the rules, or bend them, but do it. And I wouldn't listen to her advice. And I still don't often listen to her advice. And then at the age of 15, she started changing that. And she said, you are perfectly imperfect. And I would stare at her and go, well, I mean it, Mom. How do I look right now? And she would still stick by that. And it was only through pottery that I really understood what she meant. So one day I was taking pottery in high school, and I was trying to create a bowl or a pot or a cylinder or a cup, something that would make my teacher proud. And I was bending and shaping the clay. And suddenly, if any of you take pottery, you know that the slightest slip of a finger can have drastic consequences. And so I move my finger in just slightly, and everything tumbles down into this mess, a blob. And I'm looking at this and saying, oh my gosh, this was gonna be my perfect piece. This was gonna be the thing that made my teacher proud. And the strange thing was, the more I looked at it, I started to realize, actually, I can work with this. And so I decorated it, I fired it, I glazed it, and it became this. And it became my favorite piece, and I carry it with me as a reminder, not because it's perfect, but because it has a story. It has a unique story. Recently, I talked to Rocky Man, the teacher at COA, and he's one of those people that in class is always talking about a philosophy called wabi-sabi, which is a Japanese philosophy, and it means, in his words, the belief that everything has an imperfect nature. And what he said is, what I believe is clay is more than an art, and what he said is, clay is so flexible. If it doesn't turn out the way you planned, that's okay, because you can go in another direction. Pottery was one of those things that taught me that sometimes the ideal way is not the best way, and it's definitely not the only way. And this idea of wabi-sabi is something that I see very clearly in my mom's belief in perfect imperfection. It's this idea that the quirks make us unique and make us special. And that's in so many cases, whether it's in pottery or with food, and even with people. Um, and I want to point out there is something that my old high school did that I want you to do today. It was a tradition at the end of a speech. We would have a moment of silence, a moment of reflection, and I want to bring that here today. So I want everybody to close their eyes. Go ahead. And think about something in your life that reminds you of perfect imperfection. It could be anything. It could be a tree that bent in a certain way that made you look at it completely differently. It could be a person that you love so deeply, and yet you kind of hate them, but you love them so much, and you love them so much that you hate that you love them so much. And it could be anything. So I want you to take a moment to think about the perfect imperfection in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. I know that that's something that I've been celebrating and struggling with. And by the amount of hands that was just raised, I can see that a lot of us have been thinking about that. Also, just taking an eagle-eye view for a second, perfect imperfection, Stephanie has come. So our presenter is now here. Yay!
First of all, I'm sorry that I came late. I have terrible time management. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Okay. I wrote this speech first because I saw a meme that said, you have to get rid of the toxic people in your life. And then the bottom line said, then what happened with the toxic people? We are just alone, like somewhere, just in the dark, trying to, I don't know, make damage. So, I felt COA was a place that made me be that person. I'm still like, I feel I have a lot of toxicity between myself, things that I never spoke of, like pain, memories. So that's the reason why I wrote this essay, and I hope it's not an essay; it's more like a reflection. So don't get scared. I'll read it. When I was a little girl, my sister wrote a diary, and she was telling me all these stories about the crushes that she had. And as a younger sister, my duty was to read those and tease her a lot. And my parents were like, don't do that, but they also laughed, so they were part of the team. And my sister didn't like it, so she stopped writing, and I didn't have anything else to look for. But then, I grew up, and I also started writing a diary. And my sister also saw it, and she also made fun of me. And that was more painful, because that was the revenge. And it was sweet for her. So I was like, I'm never gonna write anything again. But then somehow I have to find a way to express myself and see myself through words or letters. So I turned into books, and I started reading, and I started reading all these amazing stories about trips, about love, and I would cry, and I would find this person, it's so perfect. But at the end, it was just a book. It was just a story and a character. And even though it helped me to release a lot of energy, it was still something that it wasn't me, it was someone else's words. So I was like, I maybe should start writing too, but then I was like, no, that might happen, some of my songs, someone might know my feelings. Oh no, my God, I'm so vulnerable. And I turned into drawing, but drawing wasn't the same feeling. it wasn't my voice. And I started doing a lot of things, singing. Singing kind of felt like in the same way, but not really. So then I was like, okay, I have to do it. And I started writing again. The first thing I did, it was like in the fall this year, I took a small notebook and I started writing questions that came to my mind, like, why is the sky blue? Or like simple questions that I should know, but I didn't know. So I was still writing all those questions, and the questions become deeper and deeper with time. And I start questioning things like why I'm so ashamed sometimes about this, why I feel afraid, why I cannot feel myself in front of people. And everything started like becoming from questions to huge paragraphs about why this theory, like so many conspiracy theories about my own life. And even though it was funny, I found a lot of like truth on that. And after that, like after talking about myself and taking all those memories, I start writing letters to people that I love. Things that I never told them, like, I'm sorry I hurt you, or I love you and I'm in love with you, or I don't know, things like that. So I started writing letters, and that was the way how I disintoxicate myself from my own saving, from my own cage. And I'm still writing, I'm still disintoxicating and letting the things go. The only thing I have to remember is sending the letters that I write to people. Thank you.
I feel like I should say something, but maybe not. This song is called Boys and Men, but it's about a girl, multiple girls. Unrelated. As the leaves disappear, I'll be standing here. You may be filled with fear, but just imagine our ship not come dear, and you can wipe off all those tears and listen to me make it clear it'll be returned. For let's scratch them burned, covered in our war paint, a war paint that it earned when it was turned over to them, the helpless boys and men who could not pretend not to be condemned to have no voice. They had no other choice. The helpless men and boys, the helpless boys and men. I said to them way back when, in consolation, our sky is lit by the remnants of our sun, and it will be right up until the end of every day has come. Then there will be time for play and time for fun, but only once the predators that prey upon us are gone. Come out and you'll make it to the moon. Come out, of that womb they call a tomb. I hope that I can meet you someday soon, to find out why they call you the fish that survived a sea of harpoons. And if I could get you guys to speed that up quite a bit. Just, yeah, go as fast as you want. Wait. That's what someone said to me when we met long ago. In the middle of the forest, he was wandering through the snow. He said, man, it's but a hunter hunting all others who hunt, smashing in the skulls with blunt objects, using only brunt force. We take out all who fed in our pursuit of fun. Now, taking into consideration that rattlesnakes don't have guns, neither do coyotes or wolves or even bears. So we take them down individually with nets, bullets, and snares. We erase the population without the slightest bit of care and despair in the scare that the rare bears may not be fair, and step back, say a prayer that they'll dare only ask for a fare of a hair paired with a pair. Ne'er take us from our lawn chairs to their impaired lairs, where they're casting glares everywhere. A certain dominance over the species they swear killed their fair air. Damn man, this is warfare. Take it to the square, but while you're there, take in the air and prepare to spare the life of an innocent creature, so you can declare that it's over. You've been sobered by the troubling feeling that October has come, and you missed the whole goddamn summer, cause you're dumber than a kid who got his foot caught in a bear trap, left in the woods by someone like you out there. It'll teach you a lesson, I bet, especially once the kid is dead. He got a nice rock, I'm sure, though, right above his head, and it says, our sky is lit by the remnants of our sun, and it will be right up until the end of every day has come. Then there will be time for play and time for fun, but only once the predators that prey upon us are gone. Come out and you'll make it to the moon. Come out of that womb they call a tomb. I hope that I can meet you someday soon, to find out why they call you the fish that survived a sea of harpoons. Please take these words into consideration, but as you learn and grow, make sure to disregard every word. Do make sure, though, that you are always patient, cause that's a skill found too few and too far in this world into which you've come.
also manifest in many other ways. And some ideas manifest in beautiful croissants, like perfect imperfection. And Steven, do you have a couple words that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'm really inspired by Alma's presentation, and Lily, who helped me make the croissants, tells me that cooking is about permission, like giving yourself permission to do it. And my favorite way to eat croissants is with butter and jam.
What we'd like to do is, this has been like a whole festering, beautiful pile of ideas. Maybe festering wasn't the right word. But what you can do is bring these ideas forward and share your ideas. And with this croissant, or whatever it may be that you take out the door, bring your ideas and bring your hopes and bring your dreams and share them. And be vulnerable.
So as you leave the doors, you'll find wonderful baked goods by Vera and Stephen, and we hope to share all these ideas.